color that I mentioned on apple is yellow. So I start to bring yellow color on my palette. Add a drop of water and make my yellow not really watery, just a bit. Enough water I need to have, you see? And I move it around, something like that. It's better to be. This is the yellow color that we use. And I prefer to pre-mix all my paint that it's more easy to go and apply. Then I am going to add my red. Drop of water in it, not to be dry. Tiny drop of water, a little bit. And you see how I mean about the wet. I try to turn my palette to be visible for you, how much water I need to have on my paint. So then put it aside, clean your brush with the water. And then the sap green, if you have hooker green is a little darker than sap green, so you can add a little yellow to that. Or any green you have would be okay. I don't say about just go with the sap green, but it's better to have warm tone like that. Warm tone, you can add a little yellow to make it warm. So after everything is ready, clean your brush very well with napkin. Just we need to wet one of our apple. Please wet the surface of apple to be shiny, very gently, because we would like to bring smooth color on top. If we go on top of the wet, on top of the dry surface, the color cannot mix into each other and that is not give us smooth and nice surface. And we start with the yellow. Adding yellow color here. Randomly add some yellow. Even on the bottom of apple. Here. And don't be worried because the surface is wet. So it's not get dry now. Clean your brush with napkin. Move on, red color. Red color is more on top. Even if it's really dark, you can always have a napkin to control with this napkin. And bring the red into the yellow a little bit. Very gently try to move it into the yellow. Here should be lighter. So when they mix in together, blend together and give us orangey tone. That would be okay. But don't worry, here should be darker. That's for next layer. And then clean your brush. Move on, green color. Always touch your napkin for controlling the amount of water. And then we need the green to be here on the bottom of apple. You can bring it toward yellow a little bit and bring it up a little bit here and then connect the side of the apple. But always we need to have the feeling of green on the bottom of apple. Please not touch that part because when it's wet and when the drop of water touch this apple, make some stain. So bring some space, white in between and not make it wet. I start with this one, this apple. But be careful not to go close to the apple that it's wet. So make this one wet. And then start with yellow color again. Dilute my brush into the yellow. The center of apple is more yellowy. So I'm adding yellow here. And then move on, clean my brush very well with water and napkin. Move on towards red color. And start adding red on here. very gently. I try to add the red and not touch the other apple because that is wet. And then you can control by your brush how much you need to move on into the yellow. Even you can use tip of your brush to move on into the yellow and let it fade together. Less on this part we need to bring, and then move it very gently with one stroke, come down. From here, move up a little bit. And all this happened by just tip of brush. For whole the brush, you can lay down and add the colors on top. But for details, if you would like to control it, you can use tip of your brush for moving. And then clean your brush. Move on green color. I bring the green. If the brush has a lots of water, control it by napkin. It's better the green be light. We don't need to have a dark tone here. Even if you see some darkness, we can add later. Just this value would be great to have. And then let it dry. With blue, you can make it darker or sometimes cooler. So this is the green color that it's ready to use. And I mentioned about blue as well. I'm going to add cobalt blue here. And then a tiny bit green mixed with it. This is greeny bluey. It's dark because I add less water in it, but if we would like to work lighter, we need to add a drop of water on top. So again, back to clean my brush. In some case, I need yellow as well to use, just pure yellow. I can bring it here. For the light value of this leaf that we draw at the beginning, I mentioned inside is dark, outside is light. The leaves is smaller than apple, so I'm not going to add any water on the leaves. Just go with the watery brush. And you can start with the smaller brush, control the amount of water. Doesn't matter, inside is dark. With the light value, cover whole the leaves. This is the light value. I cover whole my leaves and then wait just a bit get dry. I am feeling that this one is warm too, so I start with light yellow. One stroke, cover it. One stroke, cover this one too. And then let it a little bit dry. With a smaller brush, I think it's a good time, not completely dry. I move on with the bluey green. It's something a little bit shiny, but not completely dry. It's a good time to bring darker tone on top. One stroke, it's better the brush be just one movement, not go on back a lot. That's fine. This is for the leaves here. The other is more bluey and less green. So I'm going to add cobalt more, control with napkin, adding some stroke inside this brush, this leaves. And the reason I prefer not to do drawing is just the movement. You can clean, bring some inside tone, and even if it's wet, spread a little bit everywhere would be nice. And bring another tone inside the other side of the leaf and play with the tip of the brush to cover it. Make it pointy like that. So outside is light, inside is dark. Shadow inside, which is darker, so I move on with the blue color into my green with a smaller brush, because inside it's a shorter part, we would like to make it dark. So with the tip of brush, I draw one line here as a darkness, continue, bring it down up, then shape it like that and fill it in between. One value darker. So with less water, we can make it dark and dark, but it's still wet because the edges is not like a line, it's a spread. And the other one is this one. But you see here, this one is get completely dry. I will bring close to camera to show you what's the difference between these two. Let me finish it. Even for the dark tone, we can add a tiny bit brown into the blue and green to make the color warmer and even darker. So move on the other leaves to make some shadow inside. I'm going to add the green color and the little brown. This is completely dry too. So the line create when I bring the other layers, you see, just add less water into my paint and it's get a really dark color. Clean the brush very well. Try to take one side and bring a little bit movement here, and that's help my light and dark with a nice transition separate from each other. Just one C curve bring here and a little make it thicker for this part. This is one leaf. Even we can work, lay down your brush and play with the stroke like that. A little bit shape the leaves like this. And some shadow inside at the same time, not let it dry. So I move with the paint. I try to draw with the paint. This is one shape as a leaf. I try to be curvy. Nice, move it like that. This is one big shape of leaf. Another is close to that. I have enough water, so it's still wet. Beside that, it's tiny bit. Draw one C curve left and right, and then bring the point as a step. This is another leaf. And I'm adding a little bit brown, not the dark brown. It can be reddish brown or it can be red. Even if you have on your palette, red would be good. Tiny bit. One stroke. The feeling is important to bring this color here. And I bring one stroke here. It's wet. They can nicely moving together, move into each other, and nice result I can get. Then the green color with the tip, you can play and bring it here. It's important not much water should be in your brush. Even if a lot, control it with napkin to reduce the amount of water. And then bring on top of your brush, on top of your paper. Move it. Always happen to make some stroke on top. Then leave it. This is the brown. I add enough water. That's light. You see that it's enough water and it's light. The first layer always light. So I'm going to add the first layer on my branch. Then leave it like this. I don't want to let it dry. I would like to bring the second layer right away. Second layer should be darker, so I take again the brown, bring it at another side. It will still have water inside, but not much. Clean the brush and take some ultramarine blue, mix with the brown to reach darker value. I'm not using any black. I'm using blue and brown to make dark color. And you see, less water, more pigment. Ultramarine blue and brown give me this darkness. And then lay down, hold my brush here, draw like a line on the bottom side of my branch. Control it with napkin. And then continue, bring it a little bit, shape it. I would like to keep one line as a light on top, not cover whole the branch. And then the shadow should be here, so I'm adding red color, this warm red. Even sometimes alizarin crimson, it's good option to mix with the red. It's a little rosy color. Reduce the amount of water of brush by napkin. One curvy line under this part I would like to add, because here it's a shadow part. But make sure not touch the other apple if it's wet still, because they move the colors together. And then continue to adding some shadow here. When it's wet, very gently it can spread the line everywhere. Even I can play here with the stroke. Or if you come by mistake, you can lift up and reduce this darkness. And then a little bit should be this side. If you see, I just use a lots of water and napkin during the painting, and then disappear these edges. Now the green color, more pure green color. It's wet still here. I'm adding this dark color of green here on the bottom of apple, and then clean the water napkin I would like to get rid of the edges a little bit and then adding another value here. Just touch the side and then leave it get dry. That's enough. If you see, I'm not using to reduce the yellow color. I would like to keep that, just adding a shadow on some part. And then still it's wet. Here is shadow on top. Adding some stroke here, adding some stroke like that here. And then continue to move on toward left side. Clean the brush, because you see the edges create even when it's wet, but still has these edges. Clean the brush with very less water, control it with very less water. Just touch these edges and try to disappear. Even with the tip, we can move on toward down. Shape it a little bit, because apple has some shape inside, on top, or so for the bottom of apple that I mentioned, there is a brown part we have. We can use this brown that already make for the trunk tree with blue and brown. Just very less with a small brush. And if you see, there is no water in my brush, just I use the water that it's already has. That's dry brush. Even I can make it more dry too by touching the napkin. And then lay down on the apple. Just one movement here, one here, and one here. We can add, but it's so, I think there is lots of edge for that. Clean the brush, make it a little wet, just disappear these edges. That's great. Yeah, clean the brush with less water, just disappear these edges. Light blue color, pre-mix actually your blue here. More water, add into that and bring it on empty space of palette. This is ready for light part, and a little bit ultramarine blue for the shadow part. If you don't have ultramarine, cobalt would be good option as well for this, but ultramarine should be less water. Then clean the brush completely, dilute it into the blue. It's really watery, you see, it can move on everywhere. It's really watery. That's a good option for the background. Lay down, hold your brush on empty space. Just randomly move it like that. It's so loose and light. When you come close to the leaves and apple, it's okay to use the tip of brush and make it accurate. But when you move on top, even you can add a drop of water, make it disappear to the white of paper. Like that. Just playing with the brush stroke and make it disappear to the paper. Very light. And the stance should be very light. Even close to the apple, we can take some darker blue when it's wet. Bring it this light dark blue here, close to that. Control with the napkin. Just a tiny bit water. It's helpful to be dark. Make sure not to touch the apple. Even this section should be dark, so I start with ultramarine blue, not really dark actually. It's better to use water inside as well. But with the tip of brush, it's so helpful not to go inside apple or leaves. because I see on the painting it has a shape of leaves, which is so lovely. So I make it wet, diluted into the light blue color, help with the more amount of water, it disappear to the paper like that. And then take the green color, hooker green or sap green, doesn't matter which one. Make this part dark with the green. It's nice to have the other color or value on top of background as well. Then you can move it, look like shape of leaves, even back to the blue. Bring some brush stroke like that. Do some creativity, which is interesting in watercolor always. Or sometimes you see it's really dark when you compare it with the rest. So I'm not happy with some part, it's wet. With napkin, pressure here, lift up some paint. Pressure here, touch and lift up some paint to have different value, not all dark. It's nice to have light and dark beside each other. Then move on with the dark tone with this small triangle shape inside between the apples. It's better to go with a smaller brush